is the very first Awakening Hearts audience with, and we're delighted to have Dr. Boon Lim with us tonight as our very first guest. My name is Peter Granger, and with my wife Claire, we run Heart Bond, and we're actually going to be hosting the Zoom tonight. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Uh, we are already recording the event. It's just gone on, as you notice. So if you don't want to be shown on video, and that'll be during the questions really, because apart from that, you won't be shown. But during the questions, please put your camera off. We would appreciate though if you would leave your cameras on. It really helps us connect as a group, and it's really supportive of the speaker. So thank you if you could do that. If you have any questions during the evening or comments, please put them in the chat. And Louise, who's going to be handling the questions, will go through and try and integrate those into those questions to Dr. Lim later on. So that's the first bit. Before we actually begin the session, Louise Livingston's going to run us through a quick meditation, a heart meditation, to get us into the mood for the evening. So I'll hand over to Louise now, if she'll take over. Thank you, Louise.
Thanks, Peter. And I'm just going to spotlight myself now. Can I just check with everybody? There's a little bit of noise around just outside, and I'm just checking. Can everyone not hear that? I've just put my noise suppression on. So I'm hoping that you can hear me, but that you can't hear the chatter outside externally. So does that sound okay? Great. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Well, welcome. My name's Louise Livingstone, for those people who don't know me. I actually run an organization called the Heart Sense Research Institute. And I'm just going to offer a little meditation that I do with many of my students on the Heart Sense courses that I run. So I'd just like to invite you really to come on a little meditative journey with me. So as today's session is honoring the heart, I'd like to invite you to sink into your own heart and open to the vast potential of your heart. A physical organ, yes, but also an organ of imaginal perception that is finely attuned to the world's conversation. So if it feels comfortable for you, you might like to just gently rest your eyes in a soft gaze or close them completely. And you might also like to place your palm or your palms over your heart and just breathe very gently and slowly into your heart, taking some gentle breaths in and out at a depth and a rhythm, a pace that feels right, that feels comfortable for you. Maybe as you're doing this, perhaps you can feel your heart beating under your palm, in your chest. Or maybe there's a warmth or a tingling, or nothing at all. Whatever it is that you're experiencing is perfectly right for you. So just take your time as you breathe in and out, consciously taking that life-giving breath from the natural world down into your heart, and letting that breath touch your heart, this incredible organ, as you take your time to really arrive here on this Zoom call at this time. And maybe as you're breathing in and out, perhaps you're getting a sense of your breath being able to reach a little bit deeper into your heart. If you are finding that breath difficult to take into your heart, you could also bring into your heart's awareness someone or something that means a great deal to you, that makes your heart smile and sing, that makes your heart happy. And as you breathe in and out of your heart, just grow those feelings of appreciation and care as you connect more deeply. And as you connect with your heart in this way, as you breathe that breath of life into your heart, you are activating your heart and your heart's wisdom, your heart's awareness. And this is not necessarily something that you have to intellectualize, but just trust in your heart and your whole body wisdom that you are connecting. You might also like to say to your heart, I am here, I am listening. I am open to your loving guidance in living relation with the unfolding world. And as you do this, as you breathe deeply in and out in this relational space with your heart, you may gain a sense of yourself situated in a wider system of relations as an integral part of consciousness. So just keep breathing just for a few more moments. Into your heart, out from your heart. I'm encouraging you to return your attention to your heart regularly as this session unfolds this evening, as you activate this beautiful space of wisdom that has so much wisdom and guidance to offer you in living relationship with life itself. Your heart is an incredible organ and has so much to teach you. So when you're ready, just give thanks to your heart. Begin to bring your awareness back into this Zoom room, this time, this place. Feeling your physical body on the chair supporting you, becoming aware of the sounds within the room around you as you rise and rise gently and carefully in your awareness until you are fully present in the room in this present moment. You and your beautiful hearts. And welcome back, everybody.
Thank you, Louise. I think there's some people are still coming in, and you'll have noticed you're all called me, Peter Granger. So feel free to change the name. If you go to the top of your picture on the gallery, there'll be three dots. You tap it, there'll be three dots. You can change your name there. So it would be lovely to see your real name. Okay, how are we doing, Liz, in terms of Boon? Are you there, Boon? I think he's still a few minutes away still. So what's happened
Well,
is,
I am here.
oh, he's here. Brilliant.
Fantastic. Well, let me start with introducing Boon then. First of all, good evening, everyone. And thank you, Louise, for that beautiful start to the evening. My name's Liz Butler. For those who don't know me, I run an organisation called Heart Source, offering therapy, one-to-one therapy for people. And also I do a lot of group work, group healings and group courses. So together with Louise and Peter, I'm one of the co-founders of the Awakening Heart Collective. And as Peter said, this is our first ever audience with session. So very excited, and we've had a very good response this evening. So really delighted to see you all this evening. So as we stay connected to our hearts, let's bring some of that wonderful heart energy into this space as we welcome our speaker, Dr. Boon Lim, this evening. I'm just going to start with a very brief formal introduction. Then I'm going to go into, for the first part of the evening, a question session. I'm going to ask Boon some questions so that we get a bit of an insight into his life journey, what led him to become the doctor he is today. Following that, Boon will do a presentation on heart rate variability and some of the more technical aspects of his work, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. So I'm just going to read this introduction. Bear with me. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything out. So Boon Lim Originally from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, studied medicine on scholarship at Cambridge University here in the UK, and over the years progressed to become a consultant cardiologist based at Imperial College and Hammersmith Hospital, London. Boon has a strong interest in the autonomic nervous system's role in heart health and the electrical properties of the heart, and he's renowned for his expertise in fainting, postural tachycardia syndrome, or POTS. For those that don't know, that's when you get dizzy after standing up quickly, and more recently, long COVID. Boon has written a book, Keeping Your Heart Healthy, and contributed to over 100 peer-reviewed publications. Also, due to him favouring a holistic approach, he is trained in breath work and Tai Chi and is a heart math practitioner, elements of which he brings to his practice. But whilst all of this makes him an excellent doctor, there is more to Boon, as we'll be discovering this evening. His extra qualities, which have led to several top doctor awards voted by his peers, mean he is a heart doctor in every sense of the word, and the compassion and patient-centered approach that he fosters has led him to being recognised not just as an excellent doctor, but an outstanding doctor, a true leader in his field. Boon has generously given up his time this evening for no fee. And so with gratitude, I'm delighted to welcome him here tonight. Thank you, Boon.
Thank you for having me. Are you spotlighting me?
Yes, we're spotlighting both of us.
You're spotlighted, Boon.
This session,
okay.
this interim session,
Yeah.
Boon.
I have a wonderful image of everyone on screen on one page, which is 2467 times 246, so 42 people on the screen. And there are 39 people sharing the camera, so very grateful. Padma, thanks for coming in. And then there is a Peter Granger, and Peter Granger. So
there's a lot of Peter Granger.
Be nice for all of you to click on the top 3 dots and change your name to somebody who's not Peter Granger. But thank you for having me. I just wanted to say an anecdote. I know this day was going to start well when my clinic was delayed and my train was delayed, and the bus that was supposed to pick me up whizzed past me, and I thought, damn, this is a high frequency meeting. Because when the frequency really elevates, things kind of show themselves. And it just so happened that Meditation with Louise was the perfect time, because it got me settled in, emptying my bladder, and I'm ready. So thanks for having me, Liz.
Oh, it's
and
such
Louise.
a pleasure. And thank you for rushing home for us. I know we all appreciate it. So I've got a few questions for you, Boon. As I said, I wanted to delve a little deeper into this first session.
Sure.
And my first question, perhaps an obvious one to begin with, but I'm curious to know why it is you think you've ended up becoming a doctor of the heart. And do you remember when you first realized that you were particularly interested in the heart?
Good question. The honest answer is I grew up with a father who was ferociously business-minded, and his own upbringing was very much in the baby boomer era, and he had a tough upbringing. So I saw him struggle through life. And the question I asked when I was thinking about my career to him was, what profession gives me the most stable income? And at the back of my mind, thinking I don't want to end up struggling. And he said, become a professional like a doctor. And honestly, Liz, that was my first memory of when it was said to me that I should become a doctor. And I know it started off for the wrong reasons, but I am so delighted I am where I am now. And even more delighted that I kind of made a transition with some friends who are, I'm sure, online as well, to move into a space of leading from the heart. And that transition came some 6 or 7 years ago in full earnest. And, you know, the beginning, or one of the pivotal moments, was like being engaged with Heart Math and Gavin Andrews, who is not here with us today because he's doing a training session himself. in heart math coaching, but some of you will know him. And it connected me to a whole new way of thinking, a whole new way of being able to kind of practice medicine authentically, which hasn't been the most easy to think about in the initial stages, but it's getting easier and easier with time that passes.
That's good to hear, Boon. And I know, because I've heard you speak previously, that you've had some mind-opening, heart-awakening, perspective-shifting experiences in your life, and we could call them spiritual experiences. And I also know you've been open to what these can teach you, probably partly due to the fact you've got two brothers who are also quite attuned to, let's say, other worldly aspects of life. So I wondered if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about some of these experiences, particularly those that you feel have really shaped you into the person and the doctor you are today.
Well, I think I will skip through the start. I mean, my early childhood was steeped in this kind of experiences, and I thought that was how things were normally. And as I transitioned to my education in medicine, all that left me. So I'll start the story after I graduated and became steeped in kind of the Western way of practicing medicine, which is very reductionist, very evidence-based, very scientific. If you can't prove it, it doesn't exist. And that was a very, very, I guess, shackling experience, but not at the time. And this is the problem that we have in medicine or in any scientific discipline, that when you go so much towards the evidence base, you forget that there's an experiential base that you have almost discarded. And what I did was I actively took away from some of the early childhood learnings or experiences. I parked that aside. I fostered and turbocharged my career in medicine, became quite good at it, published. And there's a saying in medicine, publish or perish. So I didn't want to perish. I wanted to stay in a good hospital. So I worked hard academically. I worked hard clinically. I was doing long hours. And just like everyone else in the field around me in medicine, that was the only way to work. And in essence, I became my dad because that was the way he knew how to work. And he worked hard, and he would kind of raise his eyebrows and shake his head and say, why are you going on holiday? Saturday and Sunday are for working. If you don't work, you don't earn money. And so my attitude had become really fully entrenched in the industry and application of science in medicine. And to answer your question with, after that very long backdrop or preamble, it was the kind of reminder, if you like, with my brother as I was moving houses in 2019. And I have two brothers. One is 1 year younger, and he has never been traditionally very spiritually inclined. And then I have a kind of amazing 6 year younger brother who in my family group is the oldest soul in my group, because he's the one who can have premonitive dreams. He's the one who can see things from afar, and he's the one who can predict the future. And, I'm speaking like that to all of you now. You might not believe it, but the particular story is he came to my house, and he looked at a painting that Sundar Walker, who is now an artist who passed away in the summer, but this was a patient of mine who gave me a beautiful painting called the just give me a second. Can you allow me to share, Peter? Just allow this screen to share. Okay, thank you. So if I just share my screen, I'll show you what Sundar Walker looks like. And this is Sundar. So Sundar is this lady who is an artist. Can you see my picture, Liz?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is Rosemary Topping, her painting that she gifted to me, which is available in my house now, in my living room. And this is Sundar and me in clinic. And Sundar is an amazing artist. She runs a charity that was founded by her father. She's now, as I say, sadly, she died of cancer in the summer. But, you know, she ran the Ram Kapila Das Society, which her father had started, and was the most generous person I've ever met. She meditated 2 hours every morning and kind of imbued the artwork with this kind of special. In fact, I'll ask you, what do you see? I mean, I don't know whether anyone wants to comment here, but this is the piece of art that's in my living room. It's about 8 foot tall. And when my brother came to my house and he looked at this piece of art, this is my brother Jin, who is this guy here with his daughter Avery. When he came to my house and he looked at this piece of art and he said, my goodness, the person who painted this is a magician because they've imbued this piece of art with this kind of strength of protection, with an eagle's embrace. And to see the eagle, I guess you'd have to imagine this kind of head, the 2 eyes, the beak, and its wings spread over like that. I don't know if you can see it now. I'll just hide the annotations. And in fact, this was confirmed later with Sunda, that she did imbue the painting with the eagle embrace protection. And there are many other things in this picture, but maybe I won't comment. But Jin, in that very moment in my house, said, look, this person has the ability to imbue paintings and art with a certain presence or strength or kind of divine power. So you must ask her for a painting of protection. And I said, what? Protection? Like, I don't even know whether she will do it or whether she's busy or what she's doing. And he said, just ask her. Just please ask her. And then he said, stop, quickly get me a piece of paper. And at that time I was in the kitchen and the only thing I had was my son's mathematics scrapbook. So you can see I tore a page out of that. And on the 23rd of May, 2019, in the absence of any contact face-to-face between Jin and Sundar Walker, he drew this picture with a pencil. It's the only other instrument I had. And he drew this picture here. And he said, Sundar will draw this for you. And I said, how do you know that? And he said, she will. You just have to say protection. And I asked Sundar, please, would you mind, please, painting a picture of protection of moving into a new house? And she said, sure. What do you want the picture to be like? Do you want horses? Do you want a particular motif? And I said, no, the only thing I want you to imbue it with, or the only phrase I want you to think about is protection or protective. And 3 months later, or 2 months later in July, this is the picture that came back. 2 months later. And she labeled the piece, the Euroboro and the sacred lotus. And it's so amazing because the Euroboros are kind of an ancient symbol which has roots in Greek mythology, Norse mythology, and it's typically depicted by the serpent swallowing its tail. This kind of depiction is a depiction of timelessness or transcending time or moving beyond linear time. And this is exactly what my brother had done. 2 months before, he had proven to me that he was able to move beyond linear time and give me a vision of the future, which is, I would say, fairly accurate, given that I had not given any kind of framework for Sundar to paint. So there's a double circle here and here. There's this, whatever, I thought it was an orange peel, but it turns out it was lotus leaves. And, you know, this bit, I don't know what this is, but he didn't get that particularly right. But sure, the shape is there and the lotus petals are there. And with this strong realization, with proof in my hands, although I wasn't the one with the vision, it was proof to me that I was living in a world with a dimension that was beyond my perception. I am a 5 sensory human beings, and most of us are. and I cannot perceive time in the past or in the future. Maybe in the past I can, because I have memories. But my brother taught me that you can tap into another aspect of sensory perception, or perception, full stop, or consciousness, or universal truths, that has made me really think long and hard about what the hell I'm doing. And when you have such a realization in life, Liz, you cannot really go back. And this is, I guess, one of the key moments of my awakening. And there's another interesting story, and I haven't prepared slides, but when I moved into my house, my brother said, that front room on the first floor, there's something underneath the floorboards. And I said, how the hell do you know? He said, just believe me. So the first thing I did when I moved into the house is, he said, get a crowbar or hammer and undo the floorboards. He is in Kuala Lumpur, I'm in London. And at kind of 3 a.m, I call him and I said, I'm here, which floorboard? And he says, that one. I show him a WhatsApp picture. He circles it. I break the floorboard. My wife and kids think I'm mad. And I look under and I say, there's nothing there. He said, no, it's not there. It's in the next one. And I said, there's nothing there. And I'm almost about to give up. And he says to me, look, turn on your camera. And so I do a WhatsApp live call with him. And he directs me to a floorboard. And I pick up a parchment which has a mandrake root in it. And it turns out it's a Wiccan relic that needs to be taken away from my house and destroyed. And I don't even know what a Wiccan relic is. And he is in Malaysia. He's not steeped in kind of English law. So how the hell would the word Wiccan relic come into his mind at 3 a.m. to tell me what it was? I have no idea. But it came to his mind, and he said to me, this is what it is, and you need to get rid of it from the house, because it was put there for a reason, and that reason no longer exists. You are the new owner. You need protection. So these are kind of some of the kind of awakening experiences. I'm afraid it's not self-awakening. It's awakening by proxy, i.e., I have a younger brother who's kicking me hard in the ass to say, look, Boon, you better wake up. Your stupid scientific evidence-based approach ain't working here, won't save you. You need to wake up and do the right thing. And so here I am giving this talk today.
And I know there's another doctor that inspired you, James Doty, wasn't it? Do you want to just mention, because there was quite a synchronous
Yeah,
experience with him, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think this was I've given this talk before for those who've heard, so please forgive me if you've seen this, but James Doty wrote Into the Magic Shop, and I read it probably 2 or 3 years after it had been published. And this is one of those synchronicities. I often play a game with myself or my patients, and I scroll through Spotify. I like listening to podcasts on health and well-being, and sometimes spiritual podcasts, and I will literally scroll and kind of flick and get to kind of a random roulette game. And I'm just trying to show you what I do, because I've got my Spotify that I'm looking at now. And so like this, okay? So this is what I do. I get my Spotify account, and this is Feel Better, Live More, the podcast by Rangan Chatterjee. Amazing. He gets great speakers on health. And what I do, and what I did this afternoon, Liz, like I kid you not, there was a GP in clinic with me, struggling with life, unexplained symptoms for 6 years. And when somebody has unexplained symptoms for 6 years, it means it goes deeper, right? She's seen like 5 different people, no one can figure it out, and she comes to me, and I take this out, and then I flick it, and I flick it in a way that means wherever it lands on in this roulette wheel, I have 3 options. And one of the options that appeared in front of the GP was episode 484, which is precisely what she needed, because it was my one flick. We landed on 484 and 483. 483 was not relevant. 484 said 3 simple habits to reduce stress and avoid burnout. And she had been with her partner, GP, which is her husband, which is a tragedy, looking after this practice for 9,000 people. And I said, when did you last take a holiday? Never, because her and her husband could never leave at the same time. And she didn't want to leave her 9,000 patients. So this was a case of a plane crashing, and the person, the mother with an oxygen mask, feeding the other 270 passengers before feeding herself. And when I finished the conversation with her, she was in tears, but in tears of a deep realization of the truth of kind of connecting with her heart and understanding how to let go, because her problem was not being able to let go. And and I said to her very frankly, 3 years ago or 7 years ago, I would not have gone into the depth of my practice to kind of speak to you about these things. I would have just looked at your echo, your ECG, your Holter like everyone else. And I said, normal, normal, normal. There's nothing to do. Job done. So coming back to synchronicities, James Doty wrote Into the Magic Shop. I read it in one Sunday afternoon. I remember the day very clearly. It was a springtime Sunday, and I was so riveted by the book that I finished it cover to cover. And I said at the end, as I put the book on my chest, I want to meet James Doty because I want to be James. I want to be like him. I want to do what he does. And he founded a kind of foundation, a charitable foundation, and the principle of the alphabet of the heart. And I guess I won't go into that now, but those of you who want to find out more about synchronicities and manifestation, read Into the Magic Shop. His second book, Mind Magic, is also about manifestation. And these are really, really special reads. And, you know, when I manifested that in my heart, like, he's a Stanford neurosurgeon. Like, how the hell would a guy from London ever meet a Stanford neurosurgeon? And yet, there I was with James, 3 years after setting the intention, facilitated by Ian Abel, who is a very deeply spiritual artist as well, and Sean, his right-hand man. And here we are having dinner talking about mind magic in Clapham. But one of the other things that I will point out to you with Jin is that the reason I met James Doty was because I had become an expert in long COVID, and James knew Ian. Ian was a patient of mine, and Ian said, by the way, James needs some help, or my colleague James, or my friend James Doty. I said, is that the James Doty who wrote Into the Magic Shop? And he says, yes, it is. Because his wife had been going all over the States to look for a long COVID expert and couldn't find any. And so I gave James 1 hour of my time on a Zoom call, again on a Saturday afternoon. I gave his wife 1 hour of my time to talk about long COVID and how to heal from that. And at the end, James gave me kind of an hour of his time to give me advice about how to move and transcend and live and practice from the heart. And we have parallels. And at the end of it, I remember very clearly, James said, when you step to the edge of the abyss and you have to make a decision, trust your heart and jump. It may seem dark, it may seem full of doubt, but have the courage to jump. And when you jump, you will recognize that there is a net that lifts you higher than you've ever been. And that was his last kind of parting shot with me when I met him over a Zoom consult. And, you know, talk about synchronicities. James then sent me one of his alphabet compassion beads, because I met him in the summer. I had gone surfing, and as I came back from surfing, there was an envelope with a signed copy of his book, Into the Magic Shop, for his gratitude, and this compassionate beads. And here I am taking these beads and parcel to work. And on my way back from work, just as I was today, I sent a WhatsApp picture with Jin, the magician, my brother. And I said, and to Wu is my second brother. I haven't spoken much about him, but he is also getting quite deeply spiritual. And I say, do either of you see or feel anything from this bead? And this is the bead that James just sent me. It's a compassionate alphabet bead. And Jin, immediately at 6 p.m., which is equivalent to 2 a.m. his time, he wakes up from sleep and he checks his WhatsApp and he's there conversing with me. It's one of those synchronicities. And he says, and I say it's from James Doty, neurosurgeon. He wrote a book. And then Jin says, and you can read this, guys. Jin says, a lot of hands have gone through them, from the Dalai himself to James Doty, and before then through another enlightened person. And what Jin didn't know is that James Doty said to me, at the end of the consultation, like 3 weeks prior to this, he said, Boon, I will send you a pair of these compassion beads. They have been triple blessed by the Dalai Lama, by the Desmond Tutu. And I guess the third blessing was from James himself, who himself is a very spiritual being. And this is what my brother picked up without me saying anything. So once again, this is my brother who can transcend kind of the usual five senses. And then what he did for me was my awakening. So Notting Hill Gate, the train's whizzing in and out, waiting for my Wimbledon train. And I said, you are right, Jin. These beads have been blessed by the Dalai Lama and Desmond. He sent me 2 of this as a gift. And there's a few more. Hold that bead and hear the whispers that come in your ear, he says, or the first thought that comes into your head. And I say, it says, find courage or be courageous. That's what I say, because I put this thing in my ear in front of all the people walking by the train station. And this is the thought that imprints in my mind. And Jin says to me in this way that he normally speaks to me, he thinks I'm an idiot, an absolute fool, and nincompoop, because I'm so stupid in the ways of his world. I might be an academic genius, but I'm really dumb spiritually. And he says, good, at least the effort you put in has not gone to waste, which means that he has always wanted me to take this path of meditation, mindfulness, connecting, and not this kind of medical approach that I've been taking. And then he says, actually, it's more like fortune favors the bold. He knows what the beats are meaning. And then I said to him, I'm blown away, Jin. I didn't tell you in the past that he was going to give this beats, did I? How do you manage to sense the Dalai? And he says, and what does he say? He says, where does he say? Yeah, the Dalai. And in fact, let me just go to the next thing. Yeah. And then he says something to do with like the instinct, how I am kept awake for no reason at all, waiting for your phone call at 2 a.m. He should be asleep. He's working full-time job. 2 a.m. is his sleep time, and yet he wakes up awaiting my text. My read was, so this is what he says to me. My read was, first beat says, be courageous, but second beat says, be cautious. Third is, your time has come, fourth is to open up, rule the world. Okay, blah-de-blah. Anyway, so I'll stop there, Liz, and I just want to just say that these are the synchronicity moments in my life that have brought me to become aware that the way I practice is not the only way that exists within medicine and within any field. Like we should always practice with an open heart.
And I think all of us are blown away by their stories, but it's so lovely to hear, because I certainly recognize the feeling of having those synchronicities in life, and I'm sure many people who are listening do too. But to hear someone who's such an academic and steeped in the science like you to talk about this, it's just wonderful. I'm wondering, because just to say, Boon, when I hear you speak, and I've heard you before, I really think of you as a pioneer, not just in the technical aspects of the heart and in heart medicine, but in awakening something in your colleagues, in other health professionals. Could it be, I wonder, that part of your mission is to awaken other doctors and health professionals to the deeper meaning of healing? How does that idea sit with you? And do you talk about these things amongst your colleagues, and the sort of intuition you bring into your consultations? And how does that go down with
Ooh, Liz, very careful here, very careful. There are a group of doctors who are trained in the ways of evidence-based reductionist medicine who will not like to hear this at all. And my intuition is that they don't need to be converted. They are part of the old charge who are not going to awake or ascend. They are stuck, and it's not my role to get them unstuck. So the answer is yes, I think that is my purpose. But my purpose is also to develop my own discernment, to get into a crowd who are able to value what I say and able to appreciate that this experience that I'm sharing can resonate with their life, and through my leadership, I guess, because I'm in a position of responsibility now, and people, my junior doctors, look up to me. I am constantly kind of gauging and practicing discernment to find which of those people I can dig slightly deeper into. I guess coming back to another question, out of every 10 patients that I used to see 7 years ago, I would not go deep. I might go deep in one of them. Out of every 10 patients I see now, I go deep in 6 of them. Once again, I'm practicing discernment. Not everyone needs a deep root cause analysis about what's driving their condition. And some just come to you to titrate their blood pressure medication. Some come to you, and you know, as they walk in the door, it's going to be a cursory, superficial, I look at your tests, I tell you the results, I tell you what to do kind of consultation, right? But there's some who come in, like the GP today, who really, really needed to put the oxygen mask on herself because her plane was crashing and her whole world and her health was crashing around her. And by hearing this, I hope to have instilled some courage in her to make the right move. Because the moment she decides that I am going to look after myself with self-care, self-compassion, self-love, everything about my health will improve. So I don't need to see a hypertension specialist, a diabetes specialist. These things will look after themselves. So I think 6 times out of 10 now, I'm making an impact. So there are 2 purposes. 1, to make an impact on the patients, and 2, to make an impact on my colleagues. Although that I have to practice a lot of discernment. And with my own kind of developing meditative practice, I am getting better at discernment. So I almost am able to tell just when somebody walks in a room that people will be ready, that they will be ready. And the wonderful thing about this room is that you're all ready, or you are there, all of you. And this is great because that's the reason you're here. There are no people who have signed up an hour and a half on a Wednesday evening to skip dinner. Well, skipping dinner is not bad. As a fasting protocol, to really, hear what I have to share. And I'm very grateful that you're all listening to this. Thank you.
So Boon, I think discernment is such a key word, and I really think of it as an important quality of the heart and tuning into our intuition. And you're so right. It's not for you to convert people if they're not in that ready space already, but to, just your example of how you work, I'm sure is going to have such a powerful impact on many of your colleagues. So thank you for being so open and sharing so much of your life story. It's really, really inspiring to hear. So we'll move on a little bit now, Boon, and I'll let you share a bit more about your technical side of work and about heart rate variability. So if you want to share your slides.
Yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and do that shortly in a second. Okay. So may I just ask, maybe show of hands in the audience, because I can still see you. How many of you know what your heart rate variability number is? So wear a Garmin or a Whoop or an Apple Watch. Yeah, show of hands. Yeah. So keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Hyacinth, Benedict, Peter, Elaine, McGuinness. Who else? Okay. Okay. So maybe not too many. And Richard Jones, good. Maybe not too many, but I think it's worth, if we're in this field or this industry, to really get a more kind of technical aspect of HRV. So this is a talk that I did, that Liz invited me to the International Personalized Medicine Congress, the IPM Congress, which was held, I think, in October, Liz. So thank you for the invite. But I gave this talk, and I think it's quite relevant. And what I was going to share is that in April of this year, I had the most wonderful bucket list moment, because I visited Kyoto during the Hanami, the cherry blossom season. And this is a picture in Hasadera where, I was looking at the blossoms on the way up to the mountain, where there's a beautiful large statue of the Buddha. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience and a dream come true. And so when we talk about heart rate variation, we think about causes which are extrinsic and causes which are intrinsic. Of the extrinsic causes, we think of stress being something that can vary your heart rate. So the stresses come in physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress, as I've indicated there, medical stress, such as viral infection, low blood pressure. And this is where I've cut my cloth, because I'm the autonomic specialist. I'm the tilt table specialist in West London. I report 800 tilts a year, and I run the syncope service where we see people with orthostatic intolerance. And so low blood pressure stress is what I'm good at clinically. But of course, there are other things like sleep deficit stress, intoxication stress. And when we talk about the internal reasons why your heart rate may vary, another reason for heart rate variability, we have intrinsic periodic rhythms. Now, what the hell are these? These are rhythms that go on without you being conscious, or cyclical rhythms that go on without you being conscious. And the most common, the one that I want to bring your attention to, because it's what defines the heart rate variability in the measures we know them, or we know how to use them as far as the low and high frequency domains are, is respiratory sinus arrhythmia and the baroreceptor reflex. And of course, there are others, which I won't go into, which includes thermal regulation, neuroendocrine, circadian variation, and seasonal variation, like the cave bear who's hibernating in winter with a heart rate of 8 beats a minute. And in the summer or spring, it's 40 beats a minute at rest. So there's a yearly or month, like a long, long period of heart rate variation. And I think this video may be quite instructive if we look at this man and we go into his heart. It's a very nice animation from Complete Anatomy. Those of you who have an iPad who want to use this in your day-to-day training can just pay 40 quid for this version. And here I've taken out the right ventricle, because what I want to show you is the heart, and the heart in its full beating form. This is a fairly accurate anatomical description of a moving heart. And what I've highlighted there is the sinoatrial node, which is the source of all your heartbeats. It arises from the lateral wall of the right atrium chamber. And what I'm pointing out there is these orange or yellow things that I'm drawing are actually nerve fibers, both vagal and sympathetic efferents. And the sinoatrial node is heavily innervated by nerves. And you can see that there are other nerve fibers across the whole of the mediastinum or the upper chest. And it's such a complex network which ramifies all over. And here in particular in pink, I've highlighted the left vagus nerve. A lot of you will wonder where the vagus nerve is. And there's the right vagus nerve. It's a long nerve. It's called a wandering nerve. And it's also the nerve of healing. And behind there are the sympathetic chains. So this is the opposite. So the vagus nerve is one nerve. The sympathetic nervous system are held in two chains, either side of the vertebra as they come down. And it's so you've got the vagus and the sympathetic. But what we're here to talk about is heart rate variability. And because of that, I just want to highlight that the heartbeat control of your natural pacemaker in the sinoatrial node is intricately linked to the autonomic control, which is the kind of nervous fibers that come in and innervate, but also come out and sense. So there is motor fibers that do things, and there are sensory fibers which feel things. And so here in the pulmonary artery in blue and the aortic arch in red are nerve fibers that are constantly monitoring the strength of the stretch. And if your heart is full of blood, it will stretch more and send a nervous signal to the brain to say, I'm full, or potentially I'm hypertensive. And conversely, if you're very empty and dehydrated, or your leg's been bitten off and you're bleeding to death, these contractions will be less marked, and you will send a signal to the brain to say, I am hypovolemic, I don't have enough blood. And these signals go up to the brain in the autonomic nervous center and come down again through the sympathetic chain and the vagus to act appropriately. there is a third and important complex, which is a very rapid reflex, and it sits here in our necks. I don't know if you can see my fingers, but here in the carotid bulb is where it says B is your baroreflex, another richly innervated area in your carotid body that when stretched up, i.e. hypertensive, will send a signal to your brain to say, too hypertensive, let's dial down sympathetic, activate vagus. Or when you're very dry and your blood pressure is dropping, it will send a signal to do the converse, activate adrenaline and drive down your vagus so that we can elevate your blood pressures. And these are kind of the reflexes, and you can see the complexity of the nervous supply just in the ventricles, the atria, the pulmonary artery, the aortic arch, the baroreflex, but I haven't even labeled the respiratory reflex. There are respiratory sensors as well that feed into this complex. So it's super complex. And how does this tie into HRV? Well, HRV is intricately connected to the nerve traffic going both on the sensory domain and in the motor, in the doing domain. And when we look at HRV, we look at two principal things, time and frequency domain analysis. We forget about nonlinear methods. And essentially the way that we would do a HRV analysis is to look at the bread and butter cardiology diagnostic tool, which is a 12-lead ECG. And here you'll see what I'm doing is I'm calculating the interval between each heartbeat at 720 milliseconds, 920 milliseconds, 900, and I'm plotting it down as a heartbeat interval list in sequential order. And essentially at its most basic form, this is how you can establish your heart rate variability. Once you have the full kind of selection of numbers, you plot it on a heartbeat interval versus time scale. And you can begin to see a shape or a pattern evolving. And this pattern is a pattern of HRV or heart rate variability evolving in the time domain. That means you're measuring time between each successive heartbeat. And what happens is that you want, for the HRV analysis, to look at the difference in time between each successive heartbeat. And this difference is called the delta. And if you think about your Garmin or your Apple or whatever heart rate strap you're wearing, in order to calculate what is the most common value of HRV that you get on your watch or your phone every morning, you calculate the root mean square of the successive differences standard deviation. And here I just plotted those numbers on ChatGPT. And I've asked the question, can you work out RMSSD for the 5 numbers, 200, 120, 100, 100, 120? And it's done it. So for those of you who don't use ChatGPT yet, use it. It's phenomenal. And the RMSSD that they've worked out is 42.43. No need any complex tools or Excel spreadsheets. If you have an annotated beat list, you can work it out. And this might be a number that you see on your phone. And this is a useful publication for those of you who know HRV. This will be meaningful to you because you can then look at the percentiles, say, in the age group between men and women. And for RMSSD, you might expect, I mean, for those of you who lifted your hands earlier on, you might just, in fact, for all of you who haven't really worked out your HRV and don't know what the hell it means, if you're a woman and you're this, whatever age you are, remember this number, 35.8 is the average HRV that we would expect. And HRV is a marker of cardiovascular autonomic fitness. So the higher it is, generally the better it is. And for men, these are your values. So give you some time to just write down your particular value because this is individualized for each and every one of you. And then you can compare it to what your phone or your watch says later on. Anyway, this is my HRV on my Garmin. And as I was skiing in the French Alps in December 23, I had COVID. And you can see how it affected me. My HRV dropped before I became unwell, but I became unwell very shortly after, 24 hours after. And it dropped, and this was day 4 when I was admitted to hospital, and then gradual recovery after 7 days. So it is a marker of fitness. So how is HRV controlled? I think, and I'd like to propose that we control it two ways. And we start with a top-down approach. Because if you imagine HRV to be an expression of our autonomic balance between yin and yang, between parasympathetic and sympathetic, between rest and digest and fight or flight, then you'll know that any kind of top-down approach, which engages the mind, the thought process, the feeling process, such as mindfulness, purposeful living, meditation, being in the present moment, and having very positive emotions that we teach and we guide people on heart math training to express as an adjunct to the breathing techniques, will be ways that we can regulate HRV. But what really we can measure in a bit more tangible way is bottom-up control. And of all these bottom-up control modalities, such as cold plunges, oscillating with hot saunas, this kind of Scandinavian type thing that's taking off in the UK, exercise can affect your HRV in a bottom-up manner, eating well, restful, adequate sleep. Being in nature is a big one for me personally, and I would imagine should be part of the prescription for everyone. Again, Notting Hill Gate has a lot of synchronicity today, because as I went through Notting Hill Gate just 2 weeks ago, I'm going to try and show you the picture. I took a picture, and you know what it said? It was an advertisement from a wildlife charity to say, prescription, 20 minutes of nature a day. That's a prescription for health. And this is the WWF. Maybe you can't see, but it's a WWF poster put up 2 weeks before my talk. So how wonderful that is, that we're getting it on posters in underground stations. Flow states and breathing. And of course, how can we forget breathing? Because breathing, in my view, is the one aspect of autonomic control that is dual controlled. So if you think about your autonomic nervous system, and if I said, Liz, control your peristalsis now. In fact, let's raise your heart rate by 20 beats a minute, or let's increase your temperature. Let's make your pupils dilate. You can't do that. But if I say, can you breathe at a particular frequency, in a particular depth, in a particular way? You can. But if you're not aware or conscious of breathing, it gets taken care of by your autonomic nervous system. And so when people walk into your room, if you're a therapist or you're a healer, or you have clients and you see clients walk in, you can spot somebody that's anchored in sympathetic dominance by just watching them breathe for a minute. Because these are people who are fixed with their chest and who do this when they breathe. They breathe up and down with their shoulders and the chest wall. The diaphragm doesn't move, or they breath whole. And if I said to you, control of HRV is a very individual affair. We got Thich Nhat Hanh, who sadly died, Wim Hof, the great grave. And then we've got me in Arashimaya in my second bucket list, which is to be in the giant bamboo forest just outside Kyoto. Again, in April this year, I was able to visit this. It is really a special experience. Now, when we then move on from the time domain, which I'm sure you now hopefully understand, to a frequency domain. And I'll play this video because frequency domain is typically a bit more difficult to understand. And frequency domain is another way of spinning the data using a particular analysis called frequency domain analysis, used by or applying a fast Fourier transform to get this. But essentially what I'm doing here is I'm continuing with my heartbeat interval list that you can record simply off an inner balance ear clip, your Garmin watch, or even a heart rate strap. And what you do is you plot out these traces and you go and you take it onwards. And as I zoom in, you'll see that over time, perhaps 5 minutes or so, you continue to run these sinusoidal patterns. I hope we would run sinusoidal patterns, or all of us in this room will know how to get a sinusoidal pattern. We'll guide you through this shortly. And what you'll find is that there are patterns emerging within the pattern. And the way to express or pull out that pattern is through a fast Fourier transform. And what the fast Fourier transform do, it's a mathematical transform that allows you to pick up the underlying variations in the heart rate sequence. Can you see this? There is a low frequency component there. And that may also be known as LF, to those of you who look at these things. There is a high frequency component there. That means these waves are closer to each other. And that's called HF, high frequency. And this is what this forms the basis of low and high frequency. And it is said in the HRV world that the high frequency domain represents respiratory sinus arrhythmia, which is when you breathe in and out, how you control your heart rate with breath falls within that frequency of high frequency domain. And if you look at the period, or what is the cyclic oscillation of each of these frequency domains, in the low frequency, it is a period of 10 seconds, or expressed inversely 0.1 hertz, which is how the scientists like to call it. And this is said to represent a component of the sympathetic nervous system of fight or flight, or at least a ratio of fight or flight versus rest and digest. And if we look now at the high frequency component, typically a period of 5 seconds in time with breathing for most people, what we notice is that we call this the parasympathetic or respiratory sinus arrhythmia frequency. And this in a nutshell is frequency domain, and parasympathetic is also known as vagal and respiratory sinus arrhythmia. So yeah, I hope that was a clear kind of whistle-stop tour of, but quite technical, of HRV, the time domain indices, the frequency domain indices. And I guess since we're all here, we all have potentially we have clients that we're going to guide through this process. How do we breathe, and what is the most effective way to optimize your HRV and achieving coherence in the shortest possible time? It is through breath work. It's not necessarily to go to a cold plunge pool or to go out in nature, but just with breathing, you can control this. I would like to say that babies who are just born know how to breathe. Let's see this. How this 10-day-old baby gonna breathe. Lay my finger on his abdomen, see when he breathes in. Notice chest not moving, baby's chest not moving. The only way the baby's respiring is through the diaphragm, which is the muscle of respiration, which was wired beautifully when we were born, just beautifully. And now, with sympathetic dominance, we've shifted to an upper chest way of shallow breathing. So how do we breathe properly? I say that there are certain principles. We breathe diaphragmatically. We breathe very importantly, rhythmically. That means the rate of breath in and out and the pace of breath in and out is the same between breaths. Try and breathe evenly. That means if you have a 6-second breath in, you don't take the bulk of the volume in the first 3 seconds and then slow down in the last 3. I think you try and have a same rate of airflow through the nose all the way into the belly, and then the same rate of exhale as well. Slowly, ideally, although not important because this is dependent on your capacity for slow breathing. Nasally, always, in my opinion, on the in-breath. If you're practicing this for coherence and for kind of vagal activation, then nasally. There's some other breath techniques that are fire breathing to activate sympathetic nervous system to prepare you for attack or charge or energize, which are a bit different because there are various techniques. And then through the heart. And this is where it gets magical. And I will share with you a story. I don't know those of you who might have heard of Julia Bradbury. She's like a television presenter. She does lots of walking. She's written a book, Walking for Life. And she actually came to me at Hammersmith 3 weeks ago because she connected with me after I gave this talk. And she said, I want to do HRV session with you, and I want to write this in for the book teach people about HRV. And I was blown away. She's like a HRV Jedi, guys, because in my office, without nature, and this was a cold November day, very cold, like 2 degrees. We sat in the warmth of my office. She came, she put her thing on, and her coherence score, imagine this, was 5.2 at its peak. First time ever doing it, okay, which is very good. We took her out to the Wormwood Scrubs at Hammersmith Hospital. Those of you who know Hammersmith knows that it's sat by a very prestigious prison, not with barbed wire and electrical interference, so your mobile phone never works around the prison. So, but there is lovely, lovely trees there. And we sat outside and I got her to breathe. And I said, okay, stop following the ball now, stop following the pace of breathing, close your eyes and be in awe of nature. Her coherence shot up to 8.4. I mean, those of you who know what that means know that it's a phenomenally high coherence value, and this is a first timer. So really a remarkable coherence Jedi. And, you know, in my mind, the easiest thing that you can tell your clients to help them with HRV control or to help them achieve balance between parasympathetic and sympathetic is a combination of breathing and meditation or mindfulness, being in the present moment. And, you know, on that note, I guess we can go one of two ways. I'd like to say a word or two about the foundation, because as Liz said, one of the things that I feel very strongly about is the ability to look beyond our kind of day-to-day troubles and to connect with people. And this foundation, Renaissance, are founded by two lovely individuals, Miriam Castro, who used to work with me as a research nurse in the UK. And she saved all her funds in the whole 2 years on research funding to then take that money and start up a foundation in Colombia, which feeds about 50 old people. Typically, they are people who have been left behind by the family, who are underprivileged. And she and her partner, Adriana is this lady in pink here, have been able to secure a lovely compound in Colombia in a province called Quindío. And this is what they're building. I think they've come a long way since then with some income that have been generated. But for any of you who feel touched by this story, it is an incredible story. And I wonder, Liz, if you can share the kind of link, because what I'll say is that I will match your donations, I guess, to a limit of £1,000. I will match your donations if you donate and, you know, share whatever you can share to this lovely cause. I thought I saw them here earlier on, Miriam and Adriana. They may have popped. Oh yeah, I see them. Look, they're there. I can see them. I don't know if Liz, you can highlight them. I'm going to pin them for a while. These are two of the most generous angels that I've known in my life. Miriam has given her life. She's sold her house in Cali, Colombia, and put all the proceeds of her own house into this foundation. This is the most selfless giving I've ever seen in an individual. So they are not quite like Jinn, but Miriam in particular has a connection with me because randomly she'll send me a text to say, Boon, are you okay? I get a sense, like Yoda will say to Luke Skywalker, I sense that there is something not quite right because I'm going through some trouble myself. And she gets it spot on every time. And what she says is, I'll send you my blessing. And you know what? In this currency that I trade in nowadays, it seems strange, but when a patient leaves my room, I no longer ask for money, or I don't think that the thing that we exchange is money. The most gracious thing that I accept from a patient is when they say to me, bless you and your family, Dr. Lim. And this is a currency that transcends what we understand in our five senses. When the blessing comes, and when you receive it with an open heart, it really hits deep. And I feel it strongly. And I thank Adriana and Miriam for all your blessings over the years. It is so So I feel so much gratitude to be able to be part of your work and your lives. So thank you, Liz. You put the link there. I don't know whether you can put the Just Giving link. I don't have it to hand, but I guess you can put it there. And I don't know, I wonder whether, Adriana, you just want to say a 30-second something? I don't know if that's possible, Liz.
Well, thank you very much to you and to everyone who's taking part of this great conference. As you said, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And you have given us your donations, your gratitude, your, I don't know how to express. You've been such a blessing to us, not only financially, but with your support, giving us the courage to carry on. Because, yes, we are doing something that we, particularly, I never thought that I was going to do, but I ended up here in Colombia. I'm from Spain, and I ended up here just looking after elderly people. And it's not something that I was thinking of. It's just that it came out of a dream. And as you said, when you had a dream, you have to go for it and carry on following your heart, following your what you understand is the main purpose for your life. And I'm very grateful for you being part of our foundation. God bless you always and keep you safe.
Thank you so much for those kind words. I am very grateful to be part of your life and the foundation as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I wondered whether or not people would want to see a demo of HRV for those who don't know heart math. I don't know, Liz, if you can. I don't know whether you want to have a show of hands, whether this is helpful or not helpful. I'm very happy to demo, and I guess for Peter to comment, because this is a session ostensibly on HRV, and I could show you my HRV live. I am slightly nervous because I'm going to be put on the spot like a performing seal, but let's see whether it works. So I've got 2 logins, Peter. I think you got to find me on the other one. And if you're allowing screen sharing for all, I will just start and share my screen. And Peter is a heart math and HRV expert, so I'm going to let him comment because I cannot speak when I'm doing this. But I'll do this for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, Peter, and let you comment. Okay, so I'm going to get on my iPad now and try and share my screen.
Did you say you've got a separate account there? I've got your
Yes,
one.
yes, I do.
Look.
I'm going to share. It's going to come up very shortly.
Okay, right.
Yeah. I'm sharing
Yeah.
my screen. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
So I'm not going to share my audio, and I'm going to come on just in a short while. Cool. Okay. So
Okay.
I will make a few comments. That dot going left and right is actually my breath timer. It's very staccato on the screen, but believe you me, it's quite stable on mine. And for those of you who want to practice with me, you can put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And I'll just show you what I'm doing. And you can already try and breathe deeply in time with that ball. It's a bit staccato, I know, and I apologize for that. But I'm going to breathe in as it goes to the right and breathe out as it goes to the left. I'm going to start in 4 seconds, 3, 2, 1. And Peter, it's all yours.
Okay, so breathing in and out. So you should see as you breathe out, the heart rate will drop now. And as you breathe back in, so he's breathing in about 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. It takes a while for the body to just respond. Right, it's rising now, it's falling again. It will go into a nice sine wave in a moment. As the body, it's a reflex in the body that's called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. There you go. You can see the sine wave now. So as it goes down, he's breathing out. And then it's rather beautiful. It comes up again as he breathes in. And this is completely natural. It's about the healthiest breathing you can do. Really balances everything in the body. It's been shown to be both physically and mentally helpful. So that's a beautiful sine wave, Boon. And you can see the value of the coherence, as it's called, rising at the bottom, little white line coming into the blue, rising up into the green. So this is just score levels. The coherence is a measure of how smooth that sine wave is and how close to this really sort of optimum frequency of what's called 0.1 hertz, or 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out breathing. Okay, so that's you're obviously very practiced, Boon. And he will also be making positive intentions, gratitude, appreciation, love. All these things help us get into these patterns. And that's why it has a huge effect mentally on us and makes us, feel better. It's as simple as that. No drugs required here, just breathing. Okay, that's pretty good, Boon.
So I'm going to stop and I'll let you see what happens to my breathing rate as I start to speak again. For those of you who, maybe it will happen, maybe it won't, but you'll see a frequency continue for maybe 3 or 4 cycles, even after I stop doing this deep breath pattern. And that just goes to show that the coherence effect can be prolonged. And, I feel very strongly that using this with 2 minutes of demonstration to empower the patients to know that they can shift their heart rate patterns and become very coherent very quickly with practice is a wonderful way to empower these patients. So this I've stopped using this device apart from demos in sessions like this, because I no longer need to have a validated number to tell me I'm coherent. I know when I'm coherent and I know when I'm incoherent. And I guess the ultimate practice that one can do is to sit down and just breathe for 1 minute and shift states between your clients, between your meetings, between your emails very quickly. And if you can keep shifting back to coherence, and you can do this repeatedly over the day, the carryover effect will put you in a much more balanced autonomic nervous system state throughout. So I'm going to stop the screen share there, and then maybe you can see the big me. So good. Yeah. So thank you, Peter, for that commentary. It was really quite nice. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're now ready to go to questions, Boon, if that's all right. Is that okay?
Of course.
I think
Sure.
Louise is going to handle these for us. So
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks, Peter. Thank you, Boon, for a wonderful talk. The chat's been very busy, so I'm going to just grab some of the questions that have come in. Angie Greenwood asked a question. She said, I'm very interested in long COVID, having suffered with CFS for 10 years after a very bad bout of flu. Do you see the same factors at work in both conditions, she says?
Just can you repeat that question?
Yes.
What are the 2 conditions?
So she says, I'm interested in long COVID, having suffered with CFS for 10 years after a very bad bout of flu. Do you see the same factors at work in both conditions?
Yes and no. So there can be overlap, but it's really difficult to generalize. And there is a strong tension within the CFS community to try and adopt an approach that gets to the bottom of what causes CFS. This is particularly challenging, I think, because there are many, many different causes and different mechanistic concepts that bring CFS into the fore. But I guess a combination and a holistic approach works best. In long COVID, the initial insult is COVID. It's a coronavirus. And we have had people with long COVID even before COVID started, only we didn't call it long COVID. We call it CFS or ME. And these were typically situations where patients would develop, say, Epstein-Barr or a severe Campylobacter or severe stressful moment in school or at work that would then trigger a cascade of processes in the body that gave them CFS. It's a minefield, and it's quite difficult to cover without knowing the specific details. And even if we know the specific details, it can be quite challenging. These are groups of patients, and I know we're talking about you in particular, and you must have seen several people and tried different things. But I would say hang in there. And from my point of view, wearing my cardiology hat, I would suggest knowing what your blood pressure is, because you want to get rid of at least the orthostatic challenge. So if you stand up and you feel fatigued, if you stand up, you get palpitations and you feel dizzy, then at least get rid of those standing symptoms. And the way to do that is to visit a website called stopfainting.com, which is my charitable website, and learn more about orthostatic intolerance symptoms. Some people say POTS, or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and I don't know whether you have or have not got POTS, but if you have the state which is worse than on standing, it's certainly worth doing the conservative strategies outlined on I'll type it down, www.stopfainting.com, a free to use resource.
Thank you for that. I haven't actually got it anymore. I had it for 10 years, between 1998 and 2008, and it went overnight for reasons that I will not go into. But I have a friend now whose husband has long COVID after having suffered for COVID 3 years ago, and his symptoms are very similar, and that's why I was asking. But from what you say, I think he needs to, all his doctor does is tell him to take paracetamol, and the poor man is just shrinking away and getting tighter and tighter. So what I'm hoping for is to whether he could email you and find out whether you can suggest something more for him to do.
I think get him to look at Stop Fainting, get him to do an active stand test on Stop Fainting, and I will give you the link.
Thank you.
It's under top tips, and I guess he starts there. And if he takes the data from the active stand test, it's try and share it very shortly, then I think it could be a meaningful conversation with some data. All he will need for an active stand test is a blood pressure machine and somebody to press the button and to scribe the heart rate, the blood pressure, systolic, diastolic, and his symptoms while standing for 7 minutes. I'll quickly do this because I think for those of you who see clients who do have fatigue, feel free to use this website, stopfainting.com, go to top tips, and under top tips, do the active stand test and get him to actually download this PDF, which is here. And he can watch a video of me doing it and then write down all this and take it to his healthcare professional. And that's a starting point to understand if certainly he has orthostatic challenge. Okay, all he needs is a blood pressure machine. And then managing symptoms here, depending on the condition, there's a whole host of things: fluid, salt if the blood pressure is low, medications, forget about that, managing stress, compression garments, breath work, trigger avoidance, keeping cool. And then under conditions, there are a few links to useful webinars that I've done. Long COVID is what we're talking about. And so you can go here and look at some of the data that we have, autonomic dysfunction in long COVID, on a video that I speak about with Mel. And some of these kind of well-watched videos about fixing your autonomic nervous system function in long COVID. Again, all free to use. So I'll leave that for your perusal.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you, Boon. I'm just aware of time, obviously, and I'm just trying to amalgamate some of these questions here, which are all about monitoring heart rate variability and the importance of this. So is it something that you would recommend somebody monitoring their heart rate variability on a regular basis to support them with their health and their well-being?
Not necessarily. I think it's good to understand what it is as a snapshot, and maybe if you're doing a training program over 3 months or 6 weeks, have a snapshot and have a trend that you can follow. But don't wake up every morning and expect that your heart rate should be 2 points better than the previous day. It doesn't change all that much, but it changes over time with 3 months or 6 months of training, and it certainly changes with illness. So I have been able to push up my HRV from something like 44 to 52 over a year of starting to run. And I've started to run at the beginning of this year. I hate running, but I said, I'm approaching 50. I need to look after myself cardiovascularly. I am a cardiologist after all, and I prescribe this for my patients. So I've started to run. So this morning I ran 6K before work, and I felt good. And I would have never been able to run 6K before work just a year ago. I thought that was madness. Why would anyone run stationary on a treadmill, like watching whatever on the news? It's so stupid. But that's what I've ended up doing, and I've got a kick from it. So my HRV has gradually progressed one point every month because of that. And it tells you about the kind of how meaningless it is to measure it daily. So it's one snapshot that you take every interval if you do something. I mean, you have to do something. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. And also, Sonia Dominguez has asked, just for people who don't know, could you explain what flow states are?
Okay. This is amazing. I tell you another synchronicity. I have willed myself to do a TED Talk for the longest time. Impressively, the annoying little, I was going to say shit, but the annoying guy who got there ahead of me was this guy. So can you see my shared screen? No, not yet. It's coming. This little guy, yeah, whose name is Ethan Lim. Oh, sorry. Give me a second. In King's College School, Wimbledon, who is my 18-year-old son as of yesterday. Guess what he speaks on? Flow state. So watch this video and like it. It's got 383 links. But this is a good talk. This is flow state. Oh, wow. 8 minutes long. My son. He beat me to it. Anyway, that's the ego coming through, which is very bad. So I'll stop there. But just Google flow state and my surname, and you'll get him. And he delivered this a month ago perfectly. Of course, with some guidance from Dad. But a flow state is when you're physiologically connected. Your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, and your purpose is connected, and you deliver the best of your ability in an effortless manner.
Lovely. And I'm obviously conscious of your time, Boon. Just one more question. You've had such lovely comments in the chat. People agreeing with you, doctors saying they use their intuition, that they're really resonating with how you practice in your profession. But the last question is it possible to have high HRV at the same time as being incoherent? This is from Ricky.
Yes, I think heart rate and coherence, this is super technical. I actually love this question, and I want to go there, but it would take half an hour to describe it. So the 30-second version, Ricky, is that I believe when you slow your high frequency domain down, same frequency as your low frequency domain, your intrinsic sympathetic oscillators, this is when you maximize those oscillations. And that gets you into a maximal coherent state, but it may not be so good for your traditional LF-HF domains. And if you say your HF domain is a marker of heart rate variability, that specific marker of vagal tone will decrease as your coherence increases. Which of those two are more important metrics to me? It would be coherence, not HRV. So we are at the cusp of science, and Ronnie McCraty from HeartMath is or has either in press or is publishing an article gathering all the inner balance coherence work from the people who are agreeing to share the data from HeartMath to prove that actually the coherence is distinct and may not move in the same way as HRV. And that's super interesting because I think we need to get coherent, and we may need to sacrifice the frequency domain analysis in HRV to become coherent. I don't know if that answers the question. It's a bit technical. I'm sorry if I've lost some of you. But
well, Ricky says fantastic. Thank you so much. So I think, yeah, it's
right, Ricky.
You've done fabulous. Thank you, Boon. I'm going to hand over. Thank you so much. The comments are wonderful in the chat. So, from our hearts to yours, thank you so much. And I'm going to hand over to Peter now.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, Boon, fantastic evening. Thank you so much. You are such an inspiration, and I think you will lead the world of medicine to a new place, which is more holistic. I think it'd be so helpful. Thank you so much. Now I'll hand to Liz to just round off the evening.
Oh, thank you, Boon. It's been wonderful. I knew it would be. I want to thank you for generously sharing your time and really speaking from your heart this evening, which is wonderful. I think everyone was inspired and touched by the wonderful comments you gave about the charity. And so we've put the links for the GoFundMe in the chat, as well as the link that tells a bit more about the charity. So you've given your time so generously this evening, so I'd encourage everyone to go and visit that page and donate whatever you can. So Boon's been speaking from the heart tonight, and these audience with sessions, of which this is the first, are designed to allow the hearts of our guests to speak to you, the audience. And we've got many exciting talks in the pipeline for next year. We'll be talking about the physical heart, the energetic heart, and the spiritual heart, and the aim being to provide all of us with a deeper understanding and appreciation of the role and the power of the heart. So if you're interested in coming to any future events, then please make sure you're connected with us through our newsletters, because that's where we'll be sending all the details. So the first event that we've got next year, exact date to be confirmed, but it will be in February, to time with St. Valentine's Day. We're going to have a celebration of love, the highest and most important quality of the heart. So this will be a wonderful evening where we will have some readings about the heart. We're going to have a beautiful heart meditation from Padma, who's with us this evening, and we're also going to build in a very gentle cacao ceremony, celebrating love with one of the heart's favorite foods, which is chocolate. So I really hope you'll be able to join us for that. As I say, full details and the date and all the rest of the information will be in our next newsletter. So we've managed to stick pretty much to time, which I'm thrilled about. And all I want to say to finish now is thank you again, Boon, for joining us this evening, and thank you all for coming along, giving up your Wednesday evening and connecting with us together and providing lots of wonderful questions at the end. So thank you, everyone, and good evening. Hope to connect with you again soon.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and all the best, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Boon.